President Trump plans to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico starting tomorrow, in addition to doubling the 10% universal tariff charged on imports from China. President Trump says illicit drugs like fentanyl are being smuggled into the United States at unacceptable levels, and that import taxes would force other countries to crack down on the trafficking. Now, the president had previously agreed to a 30-day suspension of the Canada and Mexico tariffs that were initially supposed to start in February. And in an effort to curb illegal drugs and immigration issues, Canada created a fentanyl czar, and Mexico sent 10,000 members of its National Guard to its border with the United States. So beginning tomorrow, President Trump intends to put 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and China, with a lower 10% tax on Canadian energy products such as oil and electricity. And to speak more on this, I do want to bring in Sandra Swirsky, who is the founder and CEO of Integer LLC. Sandra, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me back.
So we are at a very interesting time for a lot of American consumers, as people are keeping a very close eye on their wallets, seeing some prices, such as the price of eggs, go steadily up. When it comes to tariffs, what is the financial impact to the average American consumer? Are American consumers going to get hit hard in their wallets when it comes to these tariffs?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think that it depends on where they're sourcing their goods from. I think that China is going to be socked as early as tomorrow with at least a 10% higher tariff, which is going to impact a lot of those Amazon goods coming to your doorstep. Mexico, we import a lot of fruits and vegetables, produce that we're going to see impacted on the grocery store shelves. From Canada, we import a lot of oil and gas, and we import a lot of lumber. So that's going to impact home building. In terms of what does that exactly mean for pocketbooks? It certainly means that we're going to be paying higher prices. Unclear whether it's going to be very steep or whether the businesses here in the U.S. can source some of these products that they're used to getting from abroad here in the U.S. Some that are very specific to these countries, we will end up paying the full 10 or 25% increase in prices.
Now, Wall Street hasn't yet opened on this Monday morning, but at least on Friday, there was a lot of concern when it came to how these tariffs might impact the stock market. As we look ahead to trading today, how much of an impact might we see immediately as the tariffs are set to take effect tomorrow?
Sure. So I think there's two things at work here. The first is that some have said that the market has already built in these tariffs into the market. And so we're not going to see much fluctuations ahead of tomorrow. I think also the market is waiting perhaps until tomorrow at 9 p.m. The president is going to be addressing a joint chamber of Congress to talk about what he's done and what he plans to do. And I think that there's also a history of the president not necessarily changing his mind, but pausing a bit on these tariffs. And so I think many on Wall Street and many businesses are hoping that the president's going to pause on some of these tariffs ahead of tomorrow. So there's a lot happening today, a lot happening tomorrow night. And I think that we're not going to see any wild fluctuations in the market. Some of it may already be baked in.
So a bit of a wait and see approach. Now, the stock market not necessarily tethered to the state of the economy. As we look ahead to just how robust the U.S. economy is, what kind of impact, if any, might these tariffs have on our national economy?
Sure. Well, I think that at any time where consumers feel the pinch in their pocketbook, consumer confidence is going to drive downward, which means less spending on credit cards, less spending on homes and goods. And I think that is going to have a direct impact on the overall economy. So I think consumer confidence is really important right now. And that is going to be driven by how much more these consumers are paying at the gas pump, at the grocery store, for homes and automobiles that they want to buy.
On the flip side, we're talking about the individual consumer, but let's take a look at it from the lens of businesses. Could this actually help boost the economy from the business standpoint? President Trump has always talked about America first and investing in American companies. Could this spur additional investment into the U.S. economy and then create more jobs for people to get?
Well, I'm glad you raised that point because it is a very important point. President Trump wants to use tariffs to encourage our companies abroad and our nation states abroad to invest here in the U.S. Back in January, he made it very clear to a number of world leaders of the World Economic Forum that if you come to the U.S., we will provide lower taxes for you to expand your businesses, to grow your businesses here. But if you choose to go elsewhere, you're going to end up with tariffs. So the long game for sure is for companies abroad and U.S. companies to grow here in the U.S. and to be able to provide a stable supply chain for U.S. businesses. And I know he's hoping that we're going to see tax cuts this year that are going to further drive investment here in the U.S. So certainly, in the long run, and maybe even in the medium run, we're going to see the proliferation of investment here in the U.S., companies building facilities, creating more jobs, and that is going to grow the economy. The concern is what happens in the short term. Some of these plants and facilities just can't be built overnight. So there may be a little bit of pain in the short run, possibly tremendous gain in the medium to long run.
So potentially short-term pain for long-term gain. When viewers take a listen to this, and we take a look at from that 10,000-foot level, of course, we have the day-to-day when we go to the grocery store, we go to the gas pump, and we see those rising prices, and there is that concern. But taking a look at it from 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, from that financial economic perspective, do you feel that the U.S. will be better off if these tariffs are to be implemented, really forcing consumers to buy, nationally and then also to invest in U.S. companies?
That is the plan. And I also think if you couple that plan with driving down regulation here in the U.S., which was a hallmark of the president's first administration, I think we're going to see a real boost in current businesses. And then you've got that longer term plan to make more product here in the U.S. for U.S. consumers.
And Sandra, I just wanted to let our viewers know that just earlier this morning, President Trump announced that he is going to be making an investment announcement